Hi guys, I'm a little restricted on moving my camera around because I've got it charging right now, but I was just going to go ahead and show you guys. I'm out of these little connectors here, these female spade lug connectors. I've got, let's see, I've got two of them right here. And I wasn't the one who put all these blue ones in this cabinet. I mean, they were done pretty tastefully by the last person, but every one of them's blue. And most of the wires that are in the cabinet hooked up to the, see, can you see? Switching power supply over there, you can't hardly see. All the wiring's blue. And, you know, I can keep up with it okay, but if I've got the right color wires to use, I would like to use them. But I'm down to two of these things. And what I was wanting to do is to replace the AC cord that goes into the back of this cabinet, because if you've seen in previous videos, the ground, somebody broke the lug off. And I mean, why would I go through all the trouble of grounding things properly and not even have a ground coming into the cabinet? So what I did is I went ahead and cut this. This is only about maybe 2.5 feet long now. I cut it just to salvage the white, black, and green wire out of it. I'm going to cut this end off and just throw it in the trash. And thing is, I decided to do that after I got all this gum off here. Someone had got gum all over there. It looks like somebody stuck it behind there while the game was running, and they just found a neat place to stick their gum. But I'm just going to cut this off and just salvage the wire, the internal conductors from this. And also, I saved the rest of it here past the skint place. There was a skint place in the insulation that I had taped up, and I just threw that away. So we're just going to keep all this as extra for the internal conductors, because that's really good supply wire, and it's like 18 gauge. So we're going to keep that, and we're going to take this brand new cord here, which I have already cut the end off of. This was like I think this is like an 8-foot heavy duty computer cord. It could have been off a big printer or something, but it was like a brand new cord I had stashed away. And we're just going to strip these. We've got two of them stripped already where we're doing some testing on the isolation transformer. And we're going to connect into these since they're light colors. And I don't know how much of this I'm going to leave. I just chopped it off about 1.5 feet long. I'll probably just come back and connect right to this. And that's just because I don't have enough spade lug connectors to do everything I need. And like I said, I've got two, but I'm just going to go ahead and just solder and put 3 pieces of heat shrink on here, and maybe 1 big piece of black heat shrink over all of it to make this connection right here. And I just want to get it done, and I'm using what I've got, and I could solder straight to the tabs on this line filter if I wanted to, but I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to completely change. I mean, I've practically stripped this whole board, and it was done okay, but I'm just going to reconfigure it and still use the piece of plywood over instead of mounting into the bottom of the cabinet, which is kind of what I want to do. But since, you know, it is an original Nintendo cabinet, I could put like 2 screws in there to hold this board on with everything on it, and instead of putting like, you know, 6, 8, however many holes it takes to mount an isolation transformer, a switching power supply, a line filter, a fuse, all that kind of stuff, you know. So I'd rather just put a few holes in, 2, maybe 4, because that isolation transformer is heavy, and if I tip the cabinet up on its side, I don't want that thing falling in there. It can cause a lot of damage. So I might take I've got a screw here and a screw in this corner. I might take and put another screw over in this corner somewhere and one up there. And these small screws you see here, they're just what was holding the switcher in, and I can reconfigure them. But we're going to reconfigure all of it. And I noticed too, I've always looked at stuff from Bob Roberts, and he had a really good section on how to like build your whole power supply section for an arcade game. And I know a lot of you guys have seen that. You probably got copies of it somewhere. But he explained it really well, and dozens of other people have done it too. But I just remember his, and he always had the fuse coming before the line filter. And I don't know. I'm like, well, does that save the line filter in case there's a surge before the fuse blows? Does that help save this line filter, which they're not real expensive? Focus. Oop. But maybe that's why he did that, because he would always, like, instead of running his hot on in, he would run this to the fuse first and then jump off the end of the fuse into the input side of the line filter with his hot, you know, with his hot from his AC coming from the wall. So I think I might reconfigure it and do it that way. Wouldn't take much here. I mean, to be honest, you wouldn't even have to pull that off. You just take this line filter and flip it around. But if you wanted to, you could move it, reconfigure it. As long as you got a little piece of wire that's got some length to it right there. So I'll figure out how to do that, and we'll come back in just a little bit. Okay, guys, I've just temporarily set the isolation transformer in here along with the switch and power supply. And I still got the little fuse block thing out here. And I'm thinking of the best way to reconfigure this, given my limitation with the spade lug connectors and stuff I have on hand. And I've got, like I said, there's the secondary of the transformer, and right through there's where we did all of our heat shrink work. And here's the little protector thing that goes around it. Let's move this control board out of the way. And it goes up and connects into the monitor. So that's supplying isolated power to the monitor as it warns you. Well, I don't know, it's warning us in another language. There we go. We can read that. Some people can probably read both. But anyway, here's our primary side. And we've got to get that connected to, it'll end up being, this is our this is our line. It's where your voltage comes in, and here's our neutral. And this is usually connected to the other side of the fuse. Well, I think what we're going to do, see if I got these loose enough. Probably not. But my eyes will let me see. Thought I loosened them up enough, but I guess not. And I'm not left-handed either. And wires are in my way. And the power supply is just sitting there. Come on, there you go. Anyway, this little jumper here, which is coming from the one side of the fuse after the line filter, which is not the way Bob Roberts does it. He does his fuse before the hot side of the line filter. He interrupts it there with a fuse, and I may reconfigure it that way. But presently, this short piece of wire comes from one side of the fuse block, and then gives us the line connection. Let's see, right down here on the last screw. But what we're going to do, I think we're going to leave this spade lug alone so it goes up under the screws. But on this side, I think we're going to nip this wire, cut it as close as we can get it to this female spade lug connector, and we're going to put a new connector on there just like it, because we do have one, but we're going to include one wire from the primary side when we do that. So we're going to take the isolation transformer back out of here. And so for instance, when we're done, this wire will be up in a connector like this along with this. So we'll be sending 120 volts to the primary side of the isolation transformer. At the same time, we're sending 120 to the switcher. And since I've only got two of these right here, we're going to do that on the hot side. And we're going to do the same thing on the neutral side on this wire that comes directly off the line filter. So I've got to finish loosening that up too and get it off. But that's my plan. And the ground, let's see. Here's the ground, blue. I would rather see it green. But we may color code that with a piece of heat shrink tubing somehow. If we can do it, we may have to take one connector off the end of this to do it. I'd just rather see green somewhere on it. But anyway, we may not touch it at all. And if we don't, then it's just going to stay like that. And that connects to one of the screws that mounts the body, the casing of the line filter to the board. And the line filter's casing is from the factory shorted to the one spade lug connection right here that is made for your ground to connect. That is shorted, in other words, electrically conductive to the metal casing of this right here. And I can just prove that to you right now. Grab my meter here. I think I can do this one-handed. You hear that? So that's going to be connected to this screw right here. And you see they're electrically connected. Well, oh, okay, that screw's a little loose. Let me touch the body. See, the screw itself is a little loose. If I push on this, watch, there it goes. It's just because I had that screw loose. I'm taking loose the ground wire. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with that. That's the way it's designed. So this goes in here, and it simply connects to the inside of this housing. And then you would connect the ground to that, and anything else is metal inside your cabinet, pretty much. You can connect it to, well, FG, the frame ground on your switch and power supply, which is where that wire goes. So that's exactly where it connects. And then from that, you could connect other things in the cabinet, or, you know, like even the body, like let's say the bracket on this isolation transformer, the frame on your monitor, the inside of the control panel, if it's metal, the metal coin door, anything like that that you want to be protected by being grounded. So if anything accidentally that had high voltage touched any of those metal parts, instead of shocking you, it would trip the breaker in your house, or possibly blow a fuse in the cabinet or in your house if you've got an older style main box. I just say breaker box. But like I say, some people have like an old 60 amp breaker box, and it's not breakers, it's cartridge fuses and those little screw-in fuses with the little glass window on top. But you get the point. So we're gonna get busy on doing some of this. Okay guys, we've got our primary wire, one of them, set up here to mate with this blue connector, and this is one that actually, let's see, where's the end I cut off of it? On this end, it actually had one of these to connect up to our other side of our line filter, and I cut it off so that we could put another one on like it, this one, and crimp it down on, sorry about that, whoa, one like it, crimp it down on both of these wires, so we'd be getting the blue and the black in here together, and we can get 120 volts to both the switching power supply and the primary side of the isolation transformer. We're going to do that to this one, and we're going to come back and do the same thing to this black one using this wire here, which we haven't cut that lug off of. We're going to cut it off, and we've got one brand new one right there to put on to mate it together with the other black primary wire. So we're going to do both of those, and we'll come back in a few minutes. We've got a little piece of black heat shrink tubing up on there, and it barely fit over them, but that's just to kind of give it a little more strength to hold together, so it's not just dependent on the crimp to hold both of these wires. Okay guys, we got both of those mated up. So our primary will be able to get AC power. And it worked out pretty good. Like I said, I put this heat shrink tubing right before where I crimped these on, because I wanted to just give that some mechanical holding power to help hold these wires from slipping and pulling around. And that'll make it less likely that either one of them will try to pull out of that crimp. Because sometimes when you crimp two wires, that can happen. But got them both on there pretty good, and our other ends still have these spade lug connectors on there, and that's what's going to mate up with the switching power supply. That'll get connected to your neutral and your hot on your switching power supply. So we're just going to run the hairdryer right quick and shrink this tubing up, which is not going to shrink much because those wires just barely fit down in there, but that's fine. I wanted it to be kind of a tight fit. Okay, so I got the hairdryer. We're just going to go ahead and hit it right here. I think that's probably quite enough. Might be too much, but you didn't see much shrinkage. But you see how you see that, and you can kind of see, focus. You can kind of see the outline of the wires. When that shrinks up, you can kind of tell that there's two wires inside. Not real easy, but I guess I can see it in person better. I can tell it tightened up some, but like I said, we just want it to help, you know, hold those wires mechanically kind of together. That's almost the same as like taping them. Better if you ask me though. Ooh, a little bit warm. The metal on the end got a little bit warm there. So yeah, that gives us some mechanical holding power there, in addition to the crimp. So we've got those done. We've got our monitor hooked to the secondary. So this isolation transformer is pretty much ready. Let's see. Oh, I did want to do this because what it was, I actually ended up using the two longest wires. This short wire was actually coming off the fuse for the hot side, and I've changed the way that that's set up. I don't know if you remember the way it was a minute ago, but I've moved the line filter and the fuse, and I'm going to have the hot come in from the cord from the wall and come in on this side of the fuse, and then have the fuse, and then it's going to come out and go in one side of the line filter, and I'll have my neutral from the cord come straight into that lug, the ground to come in the middle lug, and then out the other side we'll have the hot and the neutral come back out. And that's why I wanted two wires that were about the same length. So these two were really close, and it's good that one's maybe an inch longer, because that's going to give it an extra inch to get to the other side of the line filter away from the switch and power supply. But we're going to modify this one to be the ground, because it will reach the power supply. The switcher is going to be about right here, and the ground will reach over to just that screw on the side of the line filter, just to ground the casing.